Morning, afternoon, or evening, depending upon the time of day for you. Thank you for taking the time to spend a few minutes with me. I hope you find the experience entertaining as well as educational. Before I begin, let me tell you a little about myself. Now, when I give speeches, this part is usually done by another person who is introducing me. So you'll pardon me if this sounds a bit pretentious. My advisors have told me this is what I should say. My name is John Fall. I'm a speaker, seminar workshop facilitator, and a senior global executive management leadership consultant. I have over 4 decades of experience with organizations ranging in size from a few hundred employees to hundreds of thousands worldwide. My clients include Honda, Toyota, General Motors, the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, Royal Dutch Shell, Australian Teleservices Association, IBM, Lockheed Martin, ESI International, Computer Task Group, and numerous small and mid-sized enterprises. My industry experience is extensive and includes automotive, financial services, oil and gas, healthcare, employee benefits, mortgage banking, manufacturing, distribution, construction, real estate, insurance, and others. My consulting engagements, primarily initiated by client referrals, have taken me throughout North America and Asia Pacific, including Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and Singapore, and have involved vendor negotiations and management of client employees, consultants, and offshore resources. I'm a certified project management professional, former director of the Orange County, California, U.S. chapter of the Independent Computer Consultants Association, and author of Using Information as a Resource, published in Mortgage Banking Magazine, and Living with a Fast Idiot, the Executive Guide to Computers, used by Arthur Andersen and Company's introductory course on computers. I created and conducted a seminar workshop, How to Select and Install Information Technology, a Management Perspective, for the International Foundation of Employee Benefit Plans Automation Institute in Palm Springs, California, in the U.S., and a workshop titled How to Implement an E-Strategy for the Australian Teleservices Association in Sydney, Australia, that delivered real-life strategies and the pitfalls of e-strategy implementation for this organization, whose members are contact center managers as well as team members. The workshop included web integration techniques and department organizational strategies. I also developed and addressed a speech to high school students, What's Your Dream?, at the De La Salle College of St. Benilde Choose IT, Discover and Learn Your Future conference in Manila in the Philippines. I'm listed in Who's Who in the World, Who's Who in America, Who's Who in Finance and Industry, Who's Who in Finance and Business, Who's Who in Emerging Leaders in America, and Who's Who in the West. This speech is part of what I call Fall's Inspirational Kickoff Speeches, a collection of 5 short inspirational speeches designed to kick off an annual planning meeting, team building event, corporate reorganization, introduction, or really any meeting that could use a refreshing start. This speech is called It's Not About You. The other speeches in the collection are The Mirror Test, Do You Know Who You Are? You Don't Have to Be Famous, and It's Never Too Late. In my speech titled The Mirror Test, I talk about how if your life isn't going the way you want it to, and you're blaming everyone and everything but yourself, perhaps it's time to look in the mirror and see how much of your lack of success is because of what you are doing or not doing. Today I'm going to give you a different message. As you advance in your career into management, senior management, you'll learn that it's no longer about what you can do yourself, but what you can inspire others to do. I've worked with people in all walks of life, including senior executives of Fortune 500 global enterprises, and every one of them shares this in common. It's never about them. It's always about what they inspire others to do. Here are some ideas for you that might help you as you inspire people around you. First, immediately stop thinking about how you're going to be able to get something done by yourself, and instead, start thinking about how you're going to inspire your employees to achieve their objectives. Second, take a good, hard look at what you expect from your people and make certain you aren't making excuses for them. And finally, now develop and write down a plan for everything you're going to do to inspire your people. Make certain you include identifiable and achievable objectives with an expected date of completion for every item on your list. Today I'm going to share two stories with you. The first is about Richard Tierling, the former CEO of Harley-Davidson, perhaps the most famous motorcycle manufacturer in the world. The second is from one of my favorite customers, and it explains the phrase, the Statue of Liberty syndrome. It's from my book, And Then There Were Stories, Lessons from a Lifetime of Leadership, available on Amazon.com in both print and electronic Kindle editions. There's a fascinating article on the internet website of Entrepreneur magazine titled Inspirational Leaders Who Turned Around Their Companies. It's where I learned about Richard Tierling, and where some of the story I'm about to tell you is taken from. I also picked up some of the information from the website versions of Business Week, Forbes, Marquette University, and the Public Broadcasting System, PBS, in the U.S. When Richard Tierling joined Harley-Davidson in 1981 as Chief Financial Officer, the company had a U.S. market share of 15% and had reported a loss of $15 million US. The U.S. icon was facing steep competition from Japanese motorcycle manufacturers such as Honda, and it was struggling. Named CEO in 1989, Tierling returned the company's focus to increasing quality, improving service to customers and dealers, and producing world-class heavyweight motorcycles. By the end of Tierling's tenure, Harley-Davidson recovered its U.S. market share to 50% and posted annual sales of more than $1.7 billion US. Tierling left his post as CEO in 1997 and served on Harley-Davidson's board of directors until 2002. Mr. Tierling's professional career and personal life are marked by a love for the accomplishment of others, a deep and abiding humility in the face of success, toughness in facing reality and transforming it into opportunity, and a lifelong commitment to leadership excellence. His vision of leadership places people at the center because, as Mr. Tierling frequently states, people are the organization's only sustainable competitive advantage. Harley-Davidson hired Mr. Tierling as Vice President and Chief Financial Officer in 1981 when Harley's leadership agreed to radically reshape the corporate culture. Over the next decade, Mr. Tierling provided the vision, commitment, and leadership that threw out standard management practices of command and control, and replaced it with a set of operating principles and an organizational structure based on collaboration, teamwork, and mutual respect. During Mr. Tierling's tenure, Harley-Davidson rebuilt its famous brand based on 5 core values: tell the truth, be fair, keep your promises, respect the individual, and encourage intellectual curiosity. As Peter Singh, founder and chair of the Society for Organizational Learning, states, Because of Rich's commitment to build a company where people are the center of the enterprise rather than an input or an expense, Harley's brand has come to stand not just for Made in America, but for people connecting with one another. Since retiring, Mr. Teerlink regularly speaks to corporations, organizations, and educational institutions all around the world. He supports numerous organizations committed to the development of people. He is a champion and advocate for Marquette University's College of Professional Studies, responsible for the unique educational partnership between Harley and the college that allows employees to pursue their degree in leadership studies at the corporate headquarters. Because of his commitment to leadership excellence and to creating an ethos of service and lifelong learning throughout our community and our world, Richard F. Teerlink was commended for the Marquette University degree of Doctor of Laws on May 22, 2005. To give you a better idea of how Mr. Teerlink thinks and manages, here are some of experts from his interview in 1998 on the U.S. Public Broadcasting System, PBS, Frontline television documentary series titled, "Does America Still Work?" Question: well, what's going on out there at Harley-Davidson? Teerlink: what's going on out there are two things. We've got customers who want products and we're not doing a very good job of satisfying them. Because you mean you can't meet their demands? Excess demand, yes. The other thing that's going on is that when we lay something in front of people as to what we've got to do to improve, they step up to the bar and make it happen. So what do you mean? Your in-house people stepped up and met the challenge? What did they have to do to meet it? Overtime? Some was overtime, but it was looking at the way we work and the way we work together. Changing those things that we can do more efficiently and more effectively, rather than just keeping business as usual. Too much of business today is business as usual. Even though we're in dynamic change, you don't find a lot of necessary change going on in the process. There's a cliche, and I know you guys subscribe to it, and you see it everywhere, this idea of continuous improvement. Does it really work at Harley? Constantly improving the production process? Our indicators say that it's alive and well. We don't beat it to death with 5,000 different ways of measuring it. But if you measure the units we produce per 1,000 hours, that's certainly been improving on an ongoing basis. Our costs have been improving. We believe you have to continuously improve. Who spearheaded this idea, or was it a management group? Von Beals was our chairman, and obviously he was the orchestra leader, but it was basically a set of people who decided that we had to do things differently, and then working through the total organization and not having heroes. I don't think we believe in superheroes at Harley. What we'd rather recognize is that we've got a bunch of people who are all trying to do great things, and we as leaders have to create the environment for that to happen. How does that specifically happen? You hear management consultants talk about this all the time, as well as business philosophers. They use the language you're using and they say everybody should do it. But how did you make it work? Because a lot of companies aren't making it work. Well, we had an advantage. It was called survival back then. And so when you're surviving, it's easier to say, if we don't do this, we're not going to be here. But the real issue for a company comes when you have survived, and that is not to get complacent. What we have to do is continually renew. We have to have continuous improvement. So then you start to devise approaches that support the efforts of people. And you support the efforts of people by letting them know what's going on. And if they have a clear understanding of what's going on, they'll do the right thing in most cases. How many of your good ideas come from the workforce itself? I guess all good ideas come from the workforce because we're all part of the workforce. How many of your ideas come from the production worker? Well, we don't quantify that, but I'd say most of the things we do today, we do with great involvement of the production workforce. We're going to teams. We have a partnering effort that we're involved in now. All of that says that we're going to do it together with the people on the shop floor and the leadership of that specific department. And where possible, try to get to self-directed teams so that you don't have a supervisor there. You have the group that knows what's got to be done, determining things for themselves. Did this work for Harley only because you had such a good brand name, such a well-known brand? No. Let's say we survived because we had a brand name and we were allowed to get down to 23%. The comeback was because we had people who changed the level of quality and reliability that we had in our product, changed the product line to new and appropriate technologies, and brought that to market. Then we could have the benefit of the Harley-Davidson name. But it allowed us to get to where we are. But that's only one thing that made it happen, and that was the people in the company. But didn't it take some money though? Didn't it take some capital investment? We didn't have money then. In fact, in our first year, we had quite a discussion about whether or not we could spend $8 million on expansion. Now, we'll be going to our board of directors this week, asking them for $200 million for a new plant. It's a whole different world, but that was a very good lesson. You can't buy your way out of your problems, so you have to use the intelligence of people again. And as we've looked at our new plant project, it's by working with people that the actual capital that we require has come down, because we're doing the right thing. How does this heart and soul of Harley actually affect the workplace, the quality of the product, and the success of the company? Well, I think we all want to stay employed, and the realities of the world say if you make bad product, you don't stay employed. Remember 1982. 40% of the people left the employment of Harley-Davidson because we weren't doing the right thing. Now we have to be careful about being complacent because we are so successful, and some people think it's guaranteed. But how do you translate what you call heart and soul into business practices to motivate employees? Motivating employees is something we can't do. That's inside the people, so it's what they take inside them with regard to Harley-Davidson that says, I want Harley-Davidson to succeed. I am motivated to see Harley-Davidson succeed because I'm proud to be a motorcyclist. I'm proud to work for the company, and I want to guarantee my job in the future. There's too much going on in the world, I think, that says you're going to do this or that, and you're going to motivate someone. You know all those motivational programs. Why don't we just create an environment where people can do great things? And we do that by trying to have systems within the organization that support the efforts of people. So we make it easier for people to do business. Do you reward them well? I mean, is that part of the system? Our employees are well compensated. Every employee at Harley-Davidson in some way is involved in the gain sharing plan. We believe strongly in sharing economic benefit. Is it also a matter of simply treating these people, as individuals who count? Yes. We have what we call a business umbrella, and it's part of our business process that says this is the way we want to run our business. The first circle on that is a set of values. Tell the truth, be fair, keep your promises, respect the individual, and encourage intellectual curiosity. This sets the stage for how we treat people. Now, we don't do it right all the time, but by expressing it and by working through it, I think we start setting the context for how we treat people. lot of corporate leaders these days, perhaps they feel under the gun, but a lot of them say business does not have a social responsibility. Well, they may not feel they have a social responsibility, but if they ignore the powers of society, they'll be out of business, because society can complain to government, and then government can regulate, and government can do the one thing they do very well, and that's over-regulate, and that will hurt your business. Doesn't Harley have a sense of social responsibility? We have a strong sense of social responsibility. We're in this building here today because we will not move our headquarters out of the edge of the inner city of Milwaukee, because it's part of our heritage, and that's very important. We support many, many activities here in the inner city of Milwaukee, as well as the other locations where we have plants. But don't you pay a price for that? Couldn't you make more money if you moved to an area where labor was cheaper or you didn't have a union shop? If you view that the objective is only to make money, yes. But we view what we have to do as balance stakeholder interest. We have 6 stakeholders and we have to serve. The investor is one, a very important one. We also have employees, and we have customers, and we have suppliers, and we have government and society, and we have to try and deal with all of those, not just one. Because if all I worry about is the bottom line and abuse my employees, I'm not going to have a quality product. By the same token, if I overpay my employees and can't get the price from my customer, I don't have a job. So the real test of the management is, how do you balance all those things? And they're never in balance, but you do your best. Do a lot of companies subscribe to this notion? A lot of corporate leaders today say stakeholders in corporations is a bunch of bunk. There's only one stakeholder, and that's the shareholder, and they're entitled to their view. The question is, do they feel any way responsible for the people who generate the money to pay the shareholder, the employee and the customer? We could increase our prices 15% today, and every dollar of that would go down to the bottom line, and we would sell every unit we manufacture. I told you about our values before. That's not fair to our customers, so we don't do it. Do you think the other attitude is just bad business? Yes, we do. We're long-term and we want to stay in business. We want to be here for our 100th anniversary in 2003 and our 200th anniversary in 3003. But we have to be very careful that we balance. It's very easy to get caught up into touchy-feely soft stuff and see how everyone feels good. We still have to make a very good return, and if you look at the returns that we've had, they've been excellent. By the same token, if you look at the compensation that we pay our employees, it's excellent. You know, it's balancing and it's fairness, and I would have great difficulty saying that all I care about is the bottom line, because I think I'd make some dumb decisions that way. Others might be smarter than I am, I just can't handle it that way. Can most business do what Harley's done, adopt that attitude and succeed? I think they can. I think that respecting employees will allow you to get better productivity out of those employees. There's always the cost of the manufacturing that you have to worry about. And if you can't do it and be competitive, and a lot of companies can't, then they have to move and they have to make that decision. We at this time are not in that position, and we haven't had to do that. Do too few corporations in America think your way? Do too many of them think narrowly? I don't have any idea. I know where we're coming from, and I know what we believe in. For us, it's the right thing to do, and for someone else, it might not be the right thing to do because they have different kinds of pressures than we do. I'd be silly to sit in judgment of those decision makers. Some businessmen listen to what you have to say and think Harley can afford to talk this way because it's doing so well. But if times get tough, they're going to have to go down the same road. Well, the question is, what would cause times to get tough? Will it be that we haven't become cost competitive? Will it be that competitors come out with better products? Or will it be just pure labor costs? It's a whole variety of things. We work very hard to keep ourselves distinctive and differentiated. That's a competitive advantage. We've identified that as being very important. Other companies have identified low-cost manufacturing as being their competitive advantage. That's wonderful, and then that's what they have to go and focus on. Is that wonderful, really? For them, if they are going to succeed and keep jobs in the workforce, then they have to do that. If I'm making a commodity product, my customer's only buying a product, unless I can give him some special kind of service. And that's what we find companies do. How do they differentiate themselves on services to get that little extra dollar? And now, before I finish, here's the story I promised you earlier. It's a story about one of my favorite customers and the advice he gave me about how he grew his company from starting literally in his garage to a multi-branch operation that he sold and netted $28 million after taxes from the sale. The story is titled The Statue of Liberty Syndrome, and it's taken from my book, And Then There Were Stories, Lessons from a Lifetime of Leadership, available on Amazon.com in print and electronic Kindle editions. Jack was one of the most extraordinary entrepreneurs I've ever met. He literally started a business in his garage that he later sold to an international conglomerate for a net profit after taxes of tens of millions of dollars. And this was before the internet made millionaires out of young people who just happened to be in the right place at the right time with a new idea. Jack taught me how to fix price my contracts. I was developing custom software for him and charging him on a time and materials basis. I thought I was doing everything right. I met with the people who'd be using the programs, developed specifications that I had them review and then agree to. Sometimes I even developed a prototype so they could get the look and feel of how the software would work. Then I programmed, tested, and turned over the new software for them to test. Once everyone was satisfied, I'd move it into production. I was working late one night and came up with some additional ideas and decided rather than waiting until the next day to add them to the programs that night. When I showed them the next day, everyone was happy except Jack. He wanted to know what the new ideas would cost. When I told him, he said, "John, thanks for the free work. I'm not going to pay for it because we didn't agree to it before that it had to be done. Remember, no one spends my money except me. And just to be sure this doesn't happen again, from now on there won't be any more time and materials work. Everything will be a fixed price." So the next time Jack needed something, I quoted him a price, but it was before I had the detailed specifications. Now, you can guess how much money I made on that. But because we had an agreement, I went ahead and finished the work and only charged him what I'd estimated. And I really learned how to estimate and charge. It was a turning point, not only for my business, but also for my relationship with Jack. "John," he said, I always knew you were good technically, but I wasn't sure you knew how to run a business. You'll make a lot of money now. If you ever need any advice, I'll be glad to help." So I took him up on his offer. One of the things I remember was a discussion we had about hiring people. Jack had just let one of his vice presidents go, even though the VP had increased the company's sales by 200%. I asked what happened. "John, there were many reasons," Jack said. "I caught him with his secretary doing things in the office that belong in the bedroom. They were We're both married, not to each other, and I just don't run that kind of an organization. We learned a lot as we grew the organization. In the beginning, we were more lax in our hiring and even more lax in our firing. We gave people too much leeway in their behavior. In fact, I called it the Statue of Liberty syndrome. The Statue of Liberty has an encryption on the base that says, in part, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." It is a good testimonial to the freedom still found in the United States by immigrants. But while it works well for the country, it's not necessarily a good foundation for a profit-making exercise. Jack continued, "When we hire now, we expect that their mothers have taught them how to dress, show up for work on time, and behave professionally. We put everyone on a 90-day probation period which corresponds with the laws of the state and the country. And the minute we find unacceptable behavior, we let them go, regardless of how they perform their duties. Even though we have a good hiring process, there's still some people that have learned how to interview well, so they get hired, but they don't work out. Keep this in mind as you grow your business. It'll save you a lot of time, and even more important, a lot of money. So the next time you feel benevolent when you shouldn't, remember the Statue of Liberty syndrome. As you move from your own individual performance into management and senior management, you'll learn what to expect from your employees and how to motivate them to live up to their potential and become valuable contributors to the organization. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you and to share my stories. If I left you learning for more, send me an email at jrfall@yahoo.com and I'll send you some information about the Leadership Insight Series, a collection of 5 seminars based upon my book. And then there were stories, lessons from a lifetime of leadership. The book is available on Amazon.com in print and electronic Kindle editions. One of the seminars, Leadership Lessons from Entrepreneurs, includes stories behind the phrases the Statue of Liberty syndrome, the dinner test, giving a raise, and now what's so hard about that? The stories are interspersed with quotes from Gilbert and Steve Jobs, the late leader of Apple, Mark Zuckerberg, chairman and CEO of Facebook and the world's youngest billionaire, Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, Sir Richard Branson, founder and chairman of the Virgin Group of Companies and the 4th richest citizen of the UK, according to the Forbes 2012 list of billionaires, with an estimated net worth of US dollars 4.6 billion, and Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich, one of the best-selling books of all time and widely considered to be one of the great writers on success. The other seminars include What Can I Do?, Leadership Myths and Musts, Leadership Lessons from Everyday Life, and The Pace of Leadership. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed the stories and will not only learn some of the lessons yourself, but pass them on to your colleagues, because knowledge is one of the few things that increases when it's shared.